It's the Great Pumpkin Stout, Charlie Brown. Hey, it's Brain Muffin back with a beer review, and now I'm back from traveling abroad, and I'm home again. And so I have from the Damascus Brewery in Damascus, Virginia. You can read the label. This will cost you $10 for a 32-ounce can, 1 quart, as in 2 pints. And if you know your ounces, you know that it's automatically 32. 4 quarts make a gallon, 128 ounces, and so forth. So this, I think, is a yearly beer. Now, I just started, first went there earlier this year, so it hasn't even been a year since I've been there, but I got to take my metal cup back there and get it filled up. They have an interesting deal. If you buy some of the cups, you can get them filled, and it's just the cost of I think 12 ounces, but they're different sizes. And I got the metal one, and then I've been back, but I forgot it. So anyway, on my way back home, I came that way specifically to stop at the brewery. I wanted to stop at the distillery, but by the time I got to that, I was like, no, I just want to get home. And I'm not sure it was open. But anyway, I picked up some beers, and this is the one they had on tap. And you can get their stuff on, they don't have growlers, they do the cans. I looked in Untapped, and Pumpkin Stout from Damascus is in there, but it says 7%. So I don't know if this is they change it every year. I don't know if they cut the alcohol down to keep the costs down. I don't know. But anyway, so pumpkin stouts are an interesting, and that went all over the place. I must have shaken it a little. I didn't really shake it. Oh, I can smell it already. Wow. It can definitely tell us, I can smell the coffeeness of the stout. So we got a big can. So of course we've got the big glass, the big Polliner glass. And what I noticed with I got some other cans that were in the refrigerator, and I've had a couple of them, and they weren't overly fizzy. And sorry, as soon as I started this, my sinuses went nuts. Allergies went crazy. But one thing I've noticed is, I don't know if it's I don't think it's a bright tank. I really think it might be naturally carbonated. I don't know. But it seems like their carbonation is more geared toward their draft system, and then they just can it from there. But I don't know. And so when I do reviews of those, I'm going to make sure they sit out a proper amount of time. And I got a mix pack I got a sour, I got an IPA, and I've got, what's the other one? It's a brown IPA. I forget what the other type is. But I was the first person apparently to ever get that kind of a mix pack. So setting a trend, I hope. So right off the nose, coffee. Now I understand this is the wrong kind of glass for this, but I don't have the right kind of wear for 32 ounces. So we got to go with the big Polliner mug. So right on the nose, you get the roasted malts, a hint of coffee. Because this is what I'm saying is the carbonation does not hold up, and I don't know why. And it's not too cold. And I get a hint of pumpkin, and there's a hint of something else on the nose. But it's not overly pumpkin. So this is not like your pumpkin ale, which I haven't found around here, that my favorite Kentucky ale. And when I was in Cincinnati, I got other stuff. But what I like about this, now again, being 4%, it's not very high in alcohol. And I don't know why it's changed. But all the malts are more subtle. And there's a little bit, a hint, and I dare say, a tiny bit of sweetness from the pumpkin. And it's an interesting balance, because quite often when you think of pumpkin beers, you've got spices, and you might get cinnamon, you might get nutmeg, you might get all those flavors. But I'm not getting any of those. So it's not like it's a pumpkin pie stout or anything like that. But I get hints of that on the nose. and that maybe there's some canning things I'm getting too. It felt like there's a little bit more in there than there was. And any brewers that watch this may know what I'm talking about. Because that same phenomenon I've had in primary in particular, but secondary, or in the bottling bucket when I've primed it again, I've got it in my bucket and I'm doing my bottles. If I stick my head way in there, kind of like I just did with my nose, there's this odd aroma that I do smell in stouts. And I get that with this. It's not an off flavor. I just think it's all those the different roasted malts, especially with mine, because I'll put caramel malt and some other things in there. And it's like, it comes together and your brain doesn't know what to do with it because it gets it all at once. It doesn't get it in piecemeal. And it's not it's not a mix that your brain knows how to label, at least for me. But that's what I get. But this is pretty good. I mean, this is like, it's not overly done. It's a decent stout. I don't know what they're using as their base. If they're going for a dry stout and they're adding pumpkin, or if they're going for a milk stout, I don't know. It feels like a slightly sweeter stout. Does not feel dry, and doesn't have the thickness of a milk stout, but just kind of a sweet stout with a little bit of pumpkin in it. So I don't know if the 7% version was in the past, but it's definitely something that could definitely deal with more alcohol. I would say that 7% is probably where it needs to be, because a lot of these types of beers, the alcohol helps bring those flavors out of the fruit that you put in it. This case, it's a fruit. It has the seeds in it and all that. Some places will use puree. Some will actually just grind up pumpkins. There's different ways to get this pumpkin flavor in there. And I'm not sure what to make about, hey, it doesn't have those other flavors that I would kind of expect, cinnamon, nutmeg, and other things associated with pumpkin. And I also don't know when people do that, if they're just trying to kind of trigger a mind thing that, oh yeah, this pumpkin pie, I don't know. But it really feels like something's missing. And it might be the alcohol. It might be the roasted barley is kind of just there. This is especially on draft. I should have had some on draft there. It's like a good introduction to stouts is what it is. It's almost like a light stout because it's lower in alcohol. I know Guinness is only like 5.5. It's not really high in alcohol either, but Guinness is a more roasty flavor, and sometimes that's a little bit strong for people, especially if they don't drink coffee, because there are hints of that in this, and that's what I think is interesting. So if it's a transitional stout, we'll say, so an introduction, it's kind of like the milkshake IPAs, right? For people who don't like IPAs, but they like a little bit of hops, maybe they like some fruitiness, those types of things can be an introduction into, and you can eventually end up, with Stone IPA or something, or some triple imperial, IPA that's just like chewing on a pine cone. But I think it's an interesting and delightful introduction to stouts. So, comparing it up against some more robust stouts, this is like a 3 maybe. But taking it as kind of a lighter side of a stout and a little bit more introduction where the roasts aren't overly done, the alcohol's not huge. It has hints of pumpkin here on the nose, mid-mouth. It has a thin feel, so it's not heavy. It doesn't, this is one you could definitely dress up. This is something you could put almost like an after thing and put ice cream in or something else. You could even cook this down. I wouldn't do it with this much, but you could cook it down to use as a sauce, and maybe even a sauce to put on ice cream, because it's not overly sweet and condensed. Obviously you're gonna burn off the alcohol, but the flavors will be a little bit sharper, and then the sweetness of the ice cream could definitely balance that out. So for things like that, it's like a 4. So I'm really torn which way I want to go here. Maybe a 3.5 then. It does have some room for improvement, but I also don't know what they were going for, unfortunately. So if they were going for an introductory stout, I'd say, like, again, it's a 4. It's a nice sit around, finish eating, you're just sipping on something. Maybe you are having something sweet, so this doesn't, counteract it. It's not overly chocolatey or coffee or any overly roasted stuff. No breadiness, anything like that. So so maybe a 3.5 is a fair compromise, and the like. And one I definitely will be sipping the rest of the afternoon. So have you had anything from them that you'd like me to try? I've got the 3 other beers that I'm going to be reviewing over time. I just don't know exactly when. Have you had this in the past? And it's been, because like I said, Untappd is 7%. I don't know if I should check in on this at the 7% one, or if they've changed it, or if that's just a misnomer. Someone's got it wrong. I don't know. Let me know in the comments below. Thank you very much, and we will see you. Goodbye.